Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we're so happy that you've chosen to be with us today. This is the second webinar in a series of three. And please make sure that you view the recording for the first webinar if you couldn't make it then, and also make sure to sign up for the final installment of the series later. More information is going to be shared towards the end of this session. I just want to give you a quick reminder that this webinar is going to be recorded, and the recording is going to be made available shortly after the webinar concludes. Throughout the webinar, please, I invite you put your questions and your comments into the chat window that you see on the screen, and we will try our best to answer as many questions as possible. Any question that does not get answered straight away is going to be followed up on later. Okay, so for today's session, once again, we have a joint effort between IFS Ultimo. There's some anticipation as we get the pictures on the screen. So my name, Berend Boom, Head of EAM Insights. I'm here with Kenny Robinson, VP Sales for the Americas region. We're joined by EAM specialist, senior EAM specialist even, Nick Dillerop of MaxScript. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Candy to talk a little bit about Ultimo.
Great. Thank you very much, Berend. This is exciting to be doing our second session. As Berend said, go back and watch the first one if you didn't. It's about the process, the myths around implementation. Today, we're going to get into multi-site rollout and what that looks like. And I'm really honored to be introducing Ultimo. I'm relatively new, but the company goes back to the late 80s. It's a company that was formed out of the Netherlands and really dominates the EAM space across Europe. We were acquired by IFS 2 years ago, and I think that really shows the investment in this really robust EAM solution and bringing it to North America. I joined 5 months ago to build a team in the Americas, and one of the things that I'd love to say is we have 2,500 clients globally, but that 98% retention rate is what I'm most proud of. Those are customers that have been with us for a very long time. They're dedicated, they're happy, and adopting more and more of the solution, and working with partners like MaxScript globally is how we can do that really effectively. So over to you, Nick.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nick Dillerop. I work for MaxScript. I've been working here now for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I used to actually work for IFS Ultimo. Over a decade of experience in implementing EAM systems. We at MaxScript, we specialize in anything to do with asset performance management. We're a consultancy firm, so we primarily focus on services. And EAM implementation and EAM adoption is part of those implementation services. We work very well together with Ultimo because there's a great synergy between the kind of industries we work in, as well as the culture of the company. Companies match really well, and so in the past 3.5 years, we've been able to grow and develop our EAM implementation business, and this year, we were awarded the Implementation Partner of the Year award, which we are very proud of, and I won't stop mentioning. Our consultants primarily have a lot of experience with being the boots on the ground and having experience on the shop floor. That's actually what sets us apart, and we work globally together with Ultimo. Without further ado, I think it will be good to just get straight into busting some myths today, so we can.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we don't have the slide in this deck today, we do in the first session, is working together with MaxScript in very specific verticals, and not only an expertise in advisory in APM across, incorporating and implementing an EAM solution. The reliability aspect of that, I'll just mention we're going to be at IMC together in December. Super excited for that. And really looking in the manufacturing space, we have really large clients like Kikkoman that have a global deployment. We also have BP in the oil and gas industry and TTI in logistics. So think about across verticals, Ultimo and MaxScript work together to make sure that our clients are successful on a very robust platform and very proud of that.
Absolutely. And I can definitely tell that both of you display incredible levels of customer focus and have a lot of experience truly on a global scale, right? So to start us off for the day, a global scale often involves multi-site project rollouts, right? So my question to you is it true that a multi-site implementation is too complex to manage it efficiently?
I would say no. And we at Maxwell, we specialize in these multi-site rollouts and multi-site implementations. We've done that a lot over the years. We have a lot of experience in-house, more experience than just me. We have a large team with specialists, and when it comes to the complexity of managing efficiently, the biggest key takeaway here is to make sure that we tailor the implementation approach to what you as an organization need. And there's a couple of different ways that we can go about it. There's different approaches. We, for example, very often take a blueprint with a rollout approach where we make and design a blueprint on one or sometimes two sites and use that blueprint and then roll it out across the various sites. It's a tried and tested approach that is quite tangible, quite easy to manage. Alternative, especially if you get into larger number of sites. So if you have more than, let's say, a dozen or 24 sites, it could be more efficient. Start bundling and clustering those sites together based on geographic proximity, or potentially on organization, how you're organized. So what makes sense within your organization on getting these different sites to work together. Key is always to have a good plan and stick to the plan and execute it. That's always key when it comes to doing an efficient multi-site rollout.
Yeah, you touched on a really important point right in the beginning, is MaxScript's approach to an advisory practice of understanding the client's requirements. So we said it in the first webinar, but I'll say it again. How long is a piece of string? It's going to really, the complexity is understanding the client's needs. Is it a global implementation? Is it going to be a single instance? Again, to reinforce, Ultimo offers an unparalleled time to value and an unmatched return on investment. So one of the key things is this really the ease in which we can get a customer up and running quickly. Is it a single instance? Are you going to be in multiple instances based upon geography or complexity and integrations? It's understanding our clients' needs and then responding to that and taking the complexity out of it, I think is what we do best.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And in terms of the product itself, I mean, obviously, when you're dealing with a multi-site rollout, you're looking at different languages, different time zones, currencies, etc. Is that something that IFS Ultimo is able to tailor to?
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's actually usually part of the very first workshop that we organize when it's a multi-site rollout, where we actually need to get those basics right. We need to ensure that we know what the landscape is going to look like, what the architecture of the sites basically is going to look like, and how we're going to approach that rollout, and especially multiple currencies, multiple languages, multiple time zones. All of that plays a part in how you implement a system, because we need to get the basics right before we can build on it.
Very good to hear. So what I hear you say is start from the bottom up and then build the house going up, right? Have a solid foundation and the rest will follow.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So one thing that stood out to me is also the out-of-the-box value, right? The fact that you have this product that is out-of-the-box ready, definitely something that's desirable. But I'm also curious on both of your views on flexibility, right? If we look at the next statement here, it is stated that a standardized EAM system rollout means that the individual sites, they have no operational flexibility whatsoever. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Absolutely not. That's, again, one of the things that Ultimo does really well is really configurable, and that could be at the site level. So again, going back to if there's integrations to other systems, where's your data coming from? And I think that's one of the benefits, is really quickly being able to understand specific needs for each of the sites.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you'll find, especially if we're talking about rolling out a system across multiple countries, what you'll run into is different legislations, but also cultural differences. For example, the role of a technician in the Netherlands, for example, where I'm from, the role of a technician is different here than it is in India, for example. That's mostly due to cultural differences, but it could also simply be organizational structure, where you might have more layers of management, or maybe some more supervision in some countries than others. We need to make sure that the system can support that. A technician in the Netherlands might require approval to do something which is not required in the United States, or something along those lines is something we run into a lot. On top of that, that's just cultural differences, but we also see differences in scale. We actually did an implementation with 12 sites worldwide, where one site had, I think, 80 to 100 maintenance employees, and another site that generally had 2. So if you only have 2 maintenance employees, then your processes and procedures are going to be drastically different. You don't need a lot of additional oversight and clutter, essentially. And you want a more smooth and seamless process, and not have to click through all of the steps in the process that are there for the 80 people organization. That's something that we need to take into consideration when we create a blueprint that I mentioned before, that it is scalable and it is flexible, and that is what Ultimo provides us.
Right, so scalability, flexibility, absolutely important. How then do you cater to those different wishes? I mean, Nick, are you going to be on a different site every single week, or is that something that the users themselves can also play a role in?
Users can do it themselves as well. From the blueprint perspective, whenever we talk about, for example, a work order process, we always keep in mind that we need that process that needs to be designed with some shortcuts in mind, and ease of use in mind for optional roles that might exist in some places and not in others. When it comes to what can the user themselves do, definitely. So users themselves can have quite a big role in tailoring what they need, because they actually have the capability of making some changes to their UI to see what is important to them. But also they can have different authorization groups and authorization levels to allow them to do more or less depending on what they need.
Yeah, the solution is modular and therefore entirely scalable. You don't end up with more than you need, but also very robust capabilities. And I think that's also one of the things that Ultimo provides, is an e-learning capability within the product that's a platform for users in each location to really understand the system and how to work and configure it for their specific environment and site.
That's really good to know. Something else that I wanted to touch upon is I heard, I think it was Unique mentioned something about the configurability and the fact that you can fit this into the process. How easy is it to use an EAM system alongside some of the other tools that you obviously will be using, such as an ERP, your financial system, etc.? Does that play a role? Does it make things difficult?
Certainly, that is something that plays a big part in setting up something like this, and it also plays into the scalability of it. So with an ERP system, for example, what my preference usually is to, and that's my recommendation in most projects, is to ensure that maintenance can work in their maintenance system. They don't want to be bothered by having to go into an ERP system to do their procurement, to make that order request. So we want seamless integration between those systems. That's usually what I would recommend. And then obviously you also don't want your finance or procurement department to have to log into the EAM to approve a purchase order or create a purchase order. No, that should be a seamless integration where maintenance can work in their system and finance and procurement can do it in their own system. Provides people with confidence and also reduces costs because you don't need licenses for everyone for every single system that you have. So that's a ties into
I'm trying not to jump in, Nick, with other concepts, but two things that make me really excited is Ultimo talks about the circle of collaboration, and you just sort of touched on it, where we have other departments within your organization, and Ultimo is bringing that together in a single pane of glass. So is it health, safety, environment? Is it reliability? Is it engineering operations? There's across the organization, bringing that into one platform, one visibility, and working together to drive out better outcomes is one of the things we do really well. And then the other thing you touched on is offline mobile capabilities. So much of how we work in manufacturing, in oil and gas, you're out in the field in places that you might not have connectivity, and being able to still do work in those spaces while also, creating better data. So much of where we're going in the industry is around reliability and AI. How are we actually delivering good data so that we're getting better outcomes from that machine learning and that AI, that performance, right? And that's a really good native mobile tool. And Ultimo also delivers that. So as you just said, the different types of users that are in the system, doing that with ease, and being able to make sure that they've got the tools to do their job efficiently, safely, and then deliver better outcomes.
So that's very nice. I mean, obviously, a lot of good points to touch upon. The fact that we have this seamless integration, this centralized source of truth that everyone can benefit from is wonderful. But if I move us on to our final topic of the day, right? How do you make sure then that within your global workforce that you're obviously dealing with if you're operating multi-site projects, how do you make sure that everyone is on board and that they start adopting this new system efficiently? And isn't that really a very time-consuming process? Can you share some insights there?
I think that goes back to organizational change management. I am a very big proponent of that. I think that's really important to get your users engaged earlier in the process so that they understand the value that the system is going to deliver to them. It is tools like a really easy to use mobile tool that's going to make their life easier. It's things like the e-learning platform that I talked about. Training is key to the success of your implementation and adoption as an organization. So make sure that that training is upfront in your project plan. So not time consuming. It's I think, most important part of what we do as part of this end-to-end implementation and go live.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And part of that early communication also is identifying your key stakeholders. And that's not just like, okay, who needs to use the system and who's going to pay for it. And but it's also identifying those individuals within your organization that can become your champions, basically. And that's a way that it was identified through one of the projects I did a couple of years ago that they called the team of champions. And they were the individuals that wanted this change. They were the driving forces. And usually you can find a couple people on every single site that will want to be the torchbearers and want to go and ahead of the crowd and also become the face of using that system. And if you have a couple of key people like that within your organization, the change usually is very easy because they see everyone can then see a familiar face. They can go to a familiar face to ask them questions, and that just makes it so much easier. On top of that, through our change process and through our implementation process, we also always try to have support during the cutover period. So during the transition from your old system or your current way of working to the new way of working with Ultimo. And wherever possible, we like to be on site or at least be available remote. But it doesn't even have to be us. It can also be one of your champions, or it can be your own project team that we can train and enable to do that kind of support to the users. Because especially in those early hours and days of using a system, that's where people have the little bits of hesitation or discomfort. And if you can smooth that transition, then after 2, 3, 4 hours or a day or two, people will be like, oh yeah, of course, we've always worked like this. And that's where that's where you want to be, and get back to the business as usual as quickly as possible, and make people ask like, hey, why didn't we get this 10 years ago? Because it's easy to use.
That's a very good sentiment. And I like the idea of having the champions actually involved, right? Have a project team, have people go on site, go visit different sites. I mean, there's a lot to learn, right? Inter-site learning is definitely important. One thing that I want to add onto what you said there, Candy, is I think having the training available upfront from the get-go is super important. And one of the main reasons why I think it is important is that it creates valuable partners in conversation. Right? When you're running a project that is multi-site, what better way to start than on equal footing with people that are actually using the software, that have good understanding of the capabilities, that know what they want to do in the software, and that can take you through the list of action items, what need to be configured, what needs to be done in terms of getting the software up and running before the general public or the other global workforce, right? Those members start using the platform as well. So making sure that you invest in the right key stakeholders, take them along, get them to a comfort level where they're comfortable with the software, where they understand the needs of the workforce, and they can be your dragomans. They can really start breaking those gaps. So very good, very good. All right, I will not derail the conversation any longer. I think it's time we move on to our Q&A. So what I would invite everyone at home to do is please do send in your questions in the chat. We'll have a look at those in a second. So I'll give you some time to come up with your questions, place them in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Nick to please talk us through this case study.
So we did an implementation. We got asked to start off with an implementation primarily on 2 sites. Here in the Netherlands, this is a manufacturer of packaging material. Cardboard boxes that you would find around your Nespresso cups and your pizza boxes, those kinds of things. They have a very lean organization. It's a very efficient and lean process. I believe they also have 24/7 manufacturing with shutdown and turnarounds every couple of months. So it's a very lean organization, a very lean process. They also wanted a very lean and straightforward, quick implementation. So that's what we did. For the 2 sites, what we did is we brought them together. On one side in the north of the Netherlands, where we kicked off the implementation, and right out of the gate they were very enthusiastic, and we helped them to get Ultimo up and going in a rapid time. It was within 2 months, I believe, both of the sites were live, and then that news spread like an oil stain. It went really quickly within the organization. So one side after another was like, oh, hey, can't we get that as well? And that enthusiasm spread quite quickly. And I don't recall how many sites we have live right now, but I think it's over 10 sites that are actually live right now. And there's more that are still knocking on the door because they heard of what Ultimo can do for them and what it has done for the other sites. And the nice thing about it is that because of the leanness of the organization and our familiarity with this customer, we can get a new site to go live within 6 days. So it's a very rapid time to value. So it's a very small investment for them to add additional sites, but they're up and running really quickly, very efficiently, They can get a lot done in a short time span, and they also get a lot of control over those, especially over those shutdowns and turnarounds, because that's, as you probably will know, is very valuable time. And making the most of that short time that you usually get from production. Let's be honest, they always want to squeeze your maintenance time. To make the most out of that, that's key for this customer, and it's bringing them a lot. And they can do more maintenance now than they could do before with less time.
Super valuable. Thank you so much, Nick. All right, I see a couple of good questions come in. There's a few functional questions which I'm going to pose to you, Nick, because I think it makes the most sense, right? Mostly on integrating with the ERP and making sure that the data roll-up is correctly. First of which is, can your costs that are in the ERP system, can they go on to the asset level within Ultimo?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so by default, actually, Ultimo already does that. Basically any cost, if that's cost based on the hours of your employees working on work orders, for example, or on spare parts, on external costs for hiring some kind of equipment to do the work, or anything from a supplier, all of that through your work orders, through your purchase orders, all then get associated with your assets as well. And on your asset, you can see a total breakdown of the costs. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good to see. And those stock levels that you mentioned, right, are those managed and maintained from within Ultimo or from within
Yes.
the MRO provider?
That's always a bit of a question. Ultimo can indeed do all of your stock management.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, we see that our customers want to have that done in an ERP system. I usually would recommend keeping that in Ultimo, right? In line with what I recommended before. You want your maintenance to work within maintenance. And if you then also need your stock levels to be updated and accurate stock representation in ERP for whatever reason, then I would just do the mutation. So the stock adjustments, for example, I would send those to your ERP just to make sure that the ERP gets updated as well. But keep working in a nice, friendly, user-friendly environment and not go into ERP systems that are always a nightmare to navigate.
That's a wonderful idea. I have one final question, then I have another question for you, Candy. So in terms of your plant maintenance, right, can your multi-site system, right, let's suppose that we're using Ultimo for this, can we have both group PMs and then site-specific, and make sure that only certain individuals within a group can start managing and maintaining those models?
Certainly, yeah. So who can manage and maintain certain things is all part of the authorization structure. The way we always organize it is that it's very flexible, and from one side to another, you can identify the individuals who need to have access to it. Because with the example previously, if you only have 2 people in your maintenance organization, probably both need to be able to do it. If you have 80 people in your organization, you probably only want a handful of people to be able to do that. So that's more part of the authorization structure. And on top of that, you also have a lot of flexibility in the types of maintenance that you can do and how you can organize that. So you have individual PMs, you can do routes, inspections, but there's also functionality around bulk and group PM or maintenance classifications that allow you to manage your PMs very efficiently.
Wonderful. So a world of possibilities, it sounds like.
Certainly.
Great. We have time for one more final question, which I'm going to put to you, Candy. It is on data security, right? So tell me about Ultimo. Is it a secure platform? Is my data going to be safe?
It is, Brendan. I think, again, that's one of the things that Ultimo has done a really amazing job in creating this platform. Ultimo is a cloud product that runs on the Microsoft Azure platform and meets over 90 compliance certifications. And so I think that's also, as a global company and a global rollout, really taking into consideration those standards and certifications required across countries on the Microsoft platform. And I think just because we're out of time, I'm going to be really brief on this, but things like ISO 27001, ISO 9001, GDPR, et cetera. If you want to know more about that, please reach out. We have the IFS Ultimo in the cloud document that goes into more detail around our security standards and data privacy. So happy to provide you with that.
Wonderful. And with that, I think we should bring it to a close. First of all, I'm going to thank my fellow Mythbusters, but certainly also going to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. Thank you for attending this second webinar. Keep in mind that we have our final installment coming up on the 14th of November. If you have not yet registered, you can do so using the QR code. And this information will also be shared once we do send out the report. For now, thanks for listening and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.